the support of committee. Thank you.
Motion, Councillor Spatafora was the seconder. Before we go into the speakers list, just going to ask if Clerk McRae could remind us all as committees we're on the same page. Deferral, our conversation is limited to. Yeah, okay. Thank you. I would suggest in the laminated, there's many helpful laminated notes here. I think we encounter this one enough as a committee that would be a very helpful flow chart there. So I think we're relatively.
A question is the date when the question should be considered.
Thank you.
Our responsibility as a council with respect to the mover, to move forward and not create a precedent where all the time, instead of doing the right thing on these kinds of properties, we're delaying and dragging things backwards. I don't think that that's the right thing to do. The argument about the zoning happened 30 years ago and or again in 2017 if it happened at all. Now's the time to move forward with the problems that we face as a city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Horvath. On the speakers list right now, and it hasn't changed for a while, so if you'd like to get on it, now's the time. But we have Councillor Maureen Wilson, and then we'll go to second-time speakers.
Calling all shoppers. Thank you, Chair. You're doing an awesome job. Thank you very much. Some levity in what should be a very deliberative process and discussion. My apologies. I'm afraid I cannot support the motion for two primary reasons. One is earlier this afternoon, Mayor Horvath shared some information with us that was discouraging to hear, that we're seeing a retreat of senior orders of government on what, in addition to climate, what must be the issue of our time. And if we are to expect better, to expect more, to expect strategic investment and advancement on this issue of our time, we must lead by example. We must fully equip our head of council with the evidence to show that we are serious and that we are doing our part. And we have set a plan. I would argue that trust and confidence is eroded when we fail to follow the plan, little by little. But the only thing I disagree with the mayor's just recent comment was she said something, Mayor Horvath said something to the effect of, you know, we all understand some concerns that are had with housing. And on that, I don't understand. And I don't think she meant it the way, but I do want to address it. I think we need to look at housing, and particularly affordable housing, as a gift to our neighborhoods. That we are being intentional in our efforts to be inclusive on every front. And this is shovel ready. This has been zoned. And I would respectfully suggest that many of us have been having these conversations about housing, about opportunity for our residents for some time. And there's nothing precluding the ward councillor from having those conversations now and tomorrow and the next day thereafter. It is zoned. It is ready to go. And we need to be ready to go and lean into this plan and address this crisis and treat it like the crisis that it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maureen Wilson. Also, as first-time speakers, Councillor McMeekin and Councillor Kretsch, and then Councillor Cassar waiting patiently on deck.
Yeah, I thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. You know, leading by example. I think the good councillor tries to do that. You know, he likes to sit down and talk to his people. about things that are important, he believes, to them. And I tend generally to side on with councillors who make that kind of a pitch. The reference to the right thing to do, I think a councillor taking the time to consult is more often than not the right thing to do. And I guess the final question, notwithstanding our shared sense of purpose, and I don't think I would ever want to imply that the councillor doesn't care about affordable housing or anything else. He's as passionate about it, I suspect, and I think we'll see down the road, because I know he's working on a couple of notices of motion. I think we'll see some ample evidence of that soon. I guess finally, I often sit around the circle and I ask myself the question, when the history of the world is written, will this be on an odd or an even page? February's 2 months away. If a good councillor wants to take part of his holiday time or whatever time he has to call a meeting in his area to talk about it, that land's not going anywhere. We know it's zoned for development. It can take off any time the council in its infinite wisdom decides to do that. So I'm going to side with the councillor here, whether I suspect he may not get what he wants, but I'm going to side with him on this one.
Thank you, Councillor McMeekin. Councillor Crutch, a first-time speaker.
Thanks. I'm not going to support this simply because I'm not really sure what will be gained from consultation in this situation. In my view, the consultation is what? That we're going to have affordable housing dollars from these parking lots or not? If this consultation is about what's going to happen in the future of these parking lots or what's going to happen in the future of any of the parcels here, that's a conversation that when the site plan and an actual application comes forward, that we have that conversation then. Consulting on whether or not we move ahead with prioritizing affordable housing seems disingenuous to me. I think we should be doing what this council said it was going to do. If it's going to prioritize affordable housing, let's make the decisions we promised residents we'd make. Do that, and there's plenty of time to have conversations about what exactly will happen with those parcels of land after the decision is made. But I think prioritizing affordable housing and prioritizing the HSIR, the Housing Sustainability Investment Roadmap, is what we promised to do, so we should do it.
Thank you, Councillor Crutch. Second-time speaker is Councillor Kassar.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. First, a question to the mover. And I believe he does fully support affordable housing and it's not questioning the use. So my question to him would be, through you, Chair, is this actually consultation or time to inform? Because if the intention is to move forward, and that strong intention has been declared here around the horseshoe, are you looking just to inform? Because that could be done in a much shorter time scale, because if the potential outcome of consultation means a different plan proposed here, then that's actually a whole other debate, I think. So if you could just clarify for me, please, through the Deputy Mayor.
Oh, there we go. My mic's working now. Just time to understand the needs of my residents better. That's what I was elected on. I was elected on being transparent, and I know for a fact that sorry, through you, Chair. I know for a fact that my residents don't know about this. That's the problem. They need to know what the city's plans are with this before I'm able or comfortable to approve this. I went with the February 21st, 24 date because, as staff articulated, it didn't make really any difference in doing so. I did that homework before putting this pen to paper here. So. I hope that answers your question, through you, Chair.
Yeah, I guess since I last spoke, got a better sense of the fact that it's been zoned for a very long time for the intended use. So I wouldn't actually see it as so much consultation and feedback and shape the outcome. It would just be more of an inform. But my second question through the Deputy Mayor to staff is, to this time between now and February 21st, what actually happens between now and, is there anything material that would be happening if this is approved today between now and February 21st? And then secondly, the impact to that delay. I understand what the councillor said, that pre-checked there wasn't an impact, but what would actually be happening? Thank you.
Thank you, Director Phillips.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, we would proceed with the other properties as you see before you and work through them through the process.
No, sorry, I guess I wasn't clear. On the 2 properties in Stony Creek, what would happen between now and February 21st if they're approved as is today?
Sorry about that. Through you, Deputy Mayor. We'd proceed to look at exploring how we would actually take these properties out through some sort of process to the nonprofit industry. So we would be able to do that in parallel with the consultation if that was the desire.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to understand, if it held back any work. So you kind of said it could be done in parallel. So I understand that. I share the urgency of housing, and we need more housing. And I'm trying to understand if it really is holding anything back, and it sounds like it is not, based on the answer that I just heard. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Mayor Horwath, is that you looking to get on as a second-time speaker? Okay.
Thanks very much. I just want to say that 2 things, actually. One is that I see things a little bit the opposite. These are owned by the city. They're zoned. We should be putting them into our affordable housing stock. That's not a decision about what that actually looks like is not going to happen between now and February. There's a whole process that needs to take place in terms of what that looks like. So there's nothing preventing the councillor from having those conversations in the interim, because it's not like on the February date in the motion, all of a sudden everything's going to be wrapped up like a little gift and put into a space. I think that there's going to be time for all of these pieces to wind through the process, and so there's an opportunity during that time frame for the councillor to have those conversations with the residents. It's not like there's anything stopping that from happening. So I see the point that the councillor was making, but I see it from a different angle, in that there's no real reason to prevent this from moving forward today, because the outcome is going to be the same regardless. It's still going to be zoned the same way. We're simply going to go through the process of identifying how best to utilize those lands as a city instead of selling them off, utilizing them for affordable housing. And I do want to just, on the second piece, respond to the concern that Councillor Wilson raised. It's interesting when people think about housing going in. They worry about the shape and the form and the density and all those things. I wasn't at all thinking about affordable housing per se, but we've seen a lot of debates around here, around the council table and the committee tables, around what form, physical form, intensification takes, and I know that that's something that that folks that folks have something to say about. And so that was my intent when I was talking about people get concerned about housing, because we know that those debates are consistent, regardless if it's affordable housing or private development, market housing, or McMansions, right? It's a consistent, I think, conversation that happens around here. Having said that, I'm still in a position to not support the councillor's resolution, because I really believe that we need to take this seriously. We need to be in that position where we are following up with what we say we want to do and doing it. And there is really no reason why the conversation can't happen in the interim between now and whenever there's a final project that's going to go on those lands. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Horwath. I see your speakers list as Councillor Francis on it.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, respectfully to the mayor, there is a good reason why we should be doing that work before making this decision and not after. We saw the results of lacking consultation with HATS. We saw the results of lacking consultation with the 58 bus, and I'm not interested in going down that road. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Francis. I think we've had a pretty exhaustive conversation. The speakers list also appears to be exhaustive, not exhausting, extensive, just to be clear. And so I think there's only things left is for a vote on the amendment itself. A reminder that was moved by Councillor Francis, seconded by Councillor Spadafora, and then we will return back to the main report itself once the vote on the amendment has happened. And that vote is up. And it's, yes, on the amendment. All right, and that, the amendment carries on an 8-7 vote. And so now we will be returning to discussion, although we did already go through a speaker's list, just reminding folks, discussion and then maybe a vote on the report now as amended. And so I do believe we had an original mover and seconder for the report. Gonna see if there's any final comments. We already have kind of had this discussion. Not seeing any. So apologies, Mayor Horvath.
Sure, I want to just thank the staff for bringing the report forward. I think that it's really important that we recognize and value the work that gets done and the good advice of our professional staff. I think that that the work that's being done is important not only to our city and to the future of our city, but also to send a signal to the people of Hamilton that we're serious as a city in our commitment to addressing the crisis that we have before us. And I would just hope that as we go forward, as more and more opportunities to create affordable units, to find ways to finance affordable housing, those kinds of tools, if you will, that as those opportunities come forward, that we just take seriously our responsibility to do exactly that. It's really tough to go and talk to other orders of government about the fact that we want them to be funding more of the needs of the people of the city when it comes to affordable housing and when it comes to supportive housing, et cetera, and then come back and not have the support of the council in doing exactly that. So I would just say thank you very much to staff for pulling all of this together, for coming up with the recommendations, and I completely support the recommendations in the report as was. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Horvath. And so now on the report as amended, do we already have a mover and seconder? Because of the amendment, do we need a new one, or we're good to go? Good to go. Okay. And that vote is up. And that vote carries 15. Nothing. Thank you, everyone. Carrying forward in our agenda of discussion items, we are a little past halfway, I think. Exciting. 10.7, revitalization of Hamilton's tax increment grant program, 235 Main Street West, 74 Queen Street South, and 244 to 246 Jackson Street West, PED 23243. May I please have a mover and a seconder to put item 10.7 on the floor? Councillor Maureen Wilson and Councillor Spadafora. Thank you. Is there any discussion on item 10.7? Not seeing any discussion. We can move forward with the vote then. Perfect. And that vote carries 15-0. Thank you, everyone. On to 10.8, which is our Open Streets Temporary Linear Park 2023 update from PED 22075B. This is an OBL item. May I please have a mover and a seconder to put item 10.8 on the floor? A lot of excitement. I saw Councillor Nan and Councillor Kassar. And I don't believe, yeah, so is there any discussion on this item? Seeing Councillor Maureen Wilson.
Thank you. Asset management enthusiasm, open linear street enthusiasm. I went to this when it was on earlier this past year. I fully expected it to be a little anemic, as these things typically take a few years, and I was just blown away by the volume and the happiness and the commerce and all the good things that were going on. And I'm very appreciative of the work that went into that event and very enthusiastic about the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kassar, and then on deck, Councillor Nan.
Yeah, thanks, Deputy Mayor. I also intended open streets on King Street and also art crawl, at least one of the new weeks that it was the street was closed. Similar to Councillor Maureen Wilson, it was an amazing event. It was great to see people out. Often when you're driving that stretch through town, you just see cars and lots of cars and not a lot of people. So there were a lot of people out. My wife and I were on our bikes. We went back and forth twice, met a lot of people we knew, met a lot of new people, which was great because that would not happen in your car. You know, this is a long way from what they've been doing for a long time in Colombia and Bogota. Every Sunday, 75 miles of streets are closed, so we're a long way from that, but I think it's a very good step. I think it was a great turnout based on what I observed and what's in the report in year one. I think year two, it'll grow. So for those who might have critical feedback, well, there weren't that many people, things take time. You have to take a first step to get to a second step and so on. So very supportive. I think it's great for the city, great for businesses, and great for the people, most importantly. Thank you.
If you build it, they will come. So is that a motion to do 75 kilometers of closure here in Hamilton?
Not just yet.
Okay. Councillor Nan.
Thank you. And in way of the recommendations, just also want to say thank you to the team of staff who led the Urban Linear Park Open Streets this year. It was a fantastic event. I was able to participate with my daughter. She was on her bike. I walked. That was really efficient. But it was really incredible to meet so many neighbors on King Street and give so many folks an opportunity to connect in a completely different way. The vendors that popped up on the street had a great time. I spoke with a lot of the Ward 3 businesses. They said that they had excellent sales for that day, those that were able to take advantage of that. So from local ward's perspective, it was also really wonderful to see so many folks from outside the ward coming into the areas of stretches of both the International Village as well as an area of commercial corridor that doesn't have a BIA, but all the way over towards Barnesdale and over towards the Bernie Morelli Rec Center. It was also a fantastic opportunity to run into my colleagues as well, to see so many council members enjoying the day. Mayor, Councillor Kassar, Councillor Crutch, Councillor Wilson, and if I didn't see you, I apologize. But honestly, I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you to staff. Thank you for bringing forward these recommendations. I'm really looking forward to continuing to support this great work of giving streets that haven't gotten a lot of love other than by people driving over them a chance to see another form of life.
Thank you, Councillor Nan. Councillor Crutch.
Thanks. I'm really great to see this being adopted as a city initiative after it's been many, many years in the making in terms of James Street North. It's from the first time we closed that street on that Friday, just thousands and thousands of people showed up, and it can continue to grow and get better. People have planned programming now. We had a skate demonstration done at one block of James Street North for part of it, which people attended and loved. So this is, I think, a good thing, an excellent thing, and we find more ways to open streets to people so they can be there. My question for you about this, though, I have a question for staff, is I want to make sure, because I read in the report and it missed one little detail, which I know is very important to people on James Street North. In the last month, we were actually able to expand the pilot from north of Barton, but it doesn't mention that here in the report. So will going forward, will we be doing this stretch also for the block north of Barton?
Director Hollingsworth?
Yeah, through the chair, we'll look at the experience of the last event, which you referenced, and use that to inform our programming for the year coming forward. And happy to reach out and consult with you on the pros and cons of the different approaches, and nothing will lock us in here in terms of the limits.
Thanks, I really appreciate that, because what we saw actually when we were able to expand that one extra block is that, for reasons that escape me, and we can talk about it later, we were able to actually shut the entire side streets of Barton there. So we created an envelope north of Barton that was extremely safe to pedestrians. So for those who don't know, we just closed the internal blocks. We didn't close the cross streets, except when we got to Barton Street. So that intervention there actually ended up creating a really great pedestrian vibe and a feel where people didn't have to also cross busy roads. And I will say that although there was a lot of really, really positive feedback about the art crawl event, there was some concern about the way that it happened, right? And I think that there's a worthy time reviewing it, setting up a kind of consultation framework with people there in terms of, is there a little group of folks who will help organize some of this stuff? How do we make it so it's equitable for vendors? How do we stage this so that people aren't in dangerous situations? Because when we close it at 6, you got vendors lining up from noon onwards, right? And then shifting themselves all around the street while traffic is both on it and off it. Didn't go down always the best. So thanks for the offer to connect and talk about the details, and I'll do that offline. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Crutch. At this moment, the report has been moved, it's been seconded, it's been celebrated. If there's no other speakers, I think we're ready for a vote. Thank you, and that vote is now up. And that carries 15-0. Thank you, everyone. Moving on, next item 10.9, which is our Ontario Priorities Housing Initiative and Poverty Reduction Funding for 1540 Upper Wentworth Street in Ward 7, HSC 22038A. Could I please have a mover and a seconder to put this item on the floor? Thank you, Councillor Pauls, and seconder of Councillor Kassar. Thank you. Is there any discussion on this item? Councillor Pauls?
Thank you. And we're talking about housing, how important it is. And I'm just wondering if I could ask the question, where do we go from here? Do we need to implement something so that Kiwanis gets the funding? And I ask...
and Director Fletcher, where do we go from here?
Thank you. Only Manager Fletcher. Through the chair to the councillor. So this is a $64 million project that was $3.5 million short. We've used a combination of funding to make it financially whole and viable. The site planning work is continuing now with the expectation is construction will start this summer with a roughly 1.5 to 2 year time frame for construction and occupancy. So this is fairly imminent. We just have to implement the agreements and have them registered on title.
Right, and that's what I was going to ask next. I read that by January 21st, we need to have an implementation agreement with on title. And I'm just wondering, is legal involved in all this?
Through the chair to the councillor, legal's been involved throughout the process, have reviewed the report, and we have a draft agreement sitting with them right now.
Okay, great. And can't wait till it gets built. And because in Ward 7, actually, we have another project coming for affordable housing, and it'll be later on. I just got news that there'll be another one being built. So I'm looking forward for this one to get built and for people to move in 2026. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pauls. I'm not seeing anyone else on the speakers list at this time. It's an exciting project. It's been moved. It's been seconded. I think we can move forward with a vote. And that vote is now up. And we got there, 15-0. Thank you, everyone. Up next on our agenda is item 10.10. This is the Art Gallery of Hamilton Energy Billing Approach and Recommendations, PED 23258 or PW 23065. I'm going to look to Councillor Crutch and Councillor Danko to move and second this report and put it on the floor. Is there any discussion on the report? Councillor Danko.
Thank you, Chair. And just to remind committee, earlier this year, there was a couple items that had to do with the art gallery. First was that we waived the requirement that they had to pay their outstanding debts in order to flow the city funding that they receive annually. And the second was a presentation by the CEO, Shelley Faulkner, and her staff and some of the board members about a new relationship between the art gallery and the city of Hamilton and how we can work together to help find some efficiencies, some in-kind contributions, and how as a city we can leverage some of the things that we're already doing to help the art gallery in their goals. So just really quickly for committees, understanding this, what's before you here is fixing a glitch, if we'll call it that started in 2022. The gallery had a long-standing agreement for the utilities prices that they pay through the district energy system. That was changed in 2022, which resulted in these additional fees being billed to the gallery for their utilities, payable to the city of Hamilton. In the report, it goes through it. There's some disagreement about the legality and the, if those fees are appropriate or not. So basically, we are agreeing to waive those fees. This doesn't impact the art gallery's books in any way because they weren't planning on actually paying these fees. It doesn't impact the city's books because we haven't collected them. And I know just from the gallery's perspective, they're very appreciative of this council and the support that and collaboration that we have with the gallery in a renewed way. And the letter from CEO Faulkner is on the agenda there that articulates that to the committee. So I hope that helps out any questions that there might be. I do have one question to staff on a related item that is on another item in the agenda. So I'm going to ask that and then we can figure out how that works out. But item 10.14 is our property liability insurance renewal. And in part of the agreement with the gallery is we were going to look at ways that we could combine some of the things that we're doing as a city with the things that the gallery is currently doing independently. And insurance is one of those things. So through you, could I just ask staff if, I don't want to speak to item 10.14 differently or now, but if there is still the ability for us to move forward with those initiatives.
Councillor Danko, does the answer to that question impact, do you think, the vote on 1010? Or it's just a connection between the ideas? Yeah. Then could we hold it for 1014 if you don't think it impacts our kind of decision making on 1010? And we'll come back to you for 1014?
Absolutely. Thank you.
I see Councillor Kassar and Councillor Kassar are on our speakers list.
Yeah, my buddy right here. Just a question on the impact to the city's books. Would this not be in a receivable account? And because my understanding of the way I read it, and I apologize if I missed it, but there probably would be a receivable that now we write off, and if so, how do we write that off?
Thank you. Going to the bench, and would we be able to do an introduction at the beginning? Sorry about that.
Shelley Hesmer, Acting Director of Financial Services, Taxation and Corporate Controller. Thank you for the question. So it is set up in our accounts receivable account currently for the 2022 charges and the 2023 charges, but there is no significant allowance set up for this. At the end of 2022, there were ongoing discussions happening with the art gallery, and it was not deemed uncollectible, so it was not set up as an allowance at that point in time. Through the report, you can see that the funding source for the write-off would be the tax stabilization reserve.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to make sure that was clear and on the public record. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Kassar. Councillor Wang?
Thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor, just again to Director Hesmer. Councillor Danko referred to this as a glitch. So I do see that in recommendation D that staff will be directed to address the energy billing. So what is the plan of attack for that? Because as district energy for that whole area is run through Hamilton Energy HCE, and I'm also mindful that that is also a wholly owned subsidiary of the city of Hamilton. So I'd just like to reconcile how this is getting fixed.
Thank you. And I think GM Can is going to steal your answer, Councillor Wang. What's our plan of attack?
Yeah, through the chair, General Manager Carlisle Can. So the glitch we speak of is we moved from a allocation of the heating and cooling costs based on square footage to one that was metered. In the existing lease that was written back in, I think, the 1970s, 1980s, it spoke to a formula that was square footage. What we needed to do was update the billing procedure amend the lease agreement and then go forward. In this, there's a recommendation that we, as part of the 2024 negotiations, we're going to build that into the new partnership and how we move forward in 2024 and then in 2025 plus. If there's anyone else on the bench that would like to add to that?
Through the chair, I'll just add to it that we also do have sort of a broader council direction to look at kind of the relationship and partnership and funding model with the Art Gallery of Hamilton. So everything Director Can just described, I think we'll get wrapped up in that, and we do expect to be back in front of you in 2024. We're having conversations with the gallery now about what that might look like.
Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Thank you, Councillor Wang. Councillor Clark?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. If I can just jump off where Councillor Wang was. So our decision here, is this now going to impact our energy company and they're going to have a negative balance?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Clark. I'm going to start with GM Can for that answer.
Yeah, through the chair, I don't think there will be a negative impact. If you're referring to the energy company as Hamilton Community Enterprise, they bill us for all 7 buildings, and then we basically allocate 5 to the city, and then 2 others are sent. The Ellen Fairclough building, I'm just looking over my shoulder, and also the Art Gallery, they receive a bill. So those bills are basically based on a square footage allocation that we do as a city. So HCE would be whole.
So we're paying for the energy costs already, and there won't be a deficit because we're exempting the art gallery?
Through the chair, GM Zagaric would like to respond.
Yeah. Through the chair, the recommendations before committee identify a funding source, and so this would meet the art gallery's financial obligation. The city would fund that 2022 and 2023 obligation, and the partnership agreement would address this issue starting, I suspect, in 2024.
Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor. That makes sense. I appreciate that. Can I also seek clarification, and it may not be apropos, but we're talking about energy. I was under the impression that the art that is in the art gallery and everything that's there is owned by the city of Hamilton. And of course, their energy is a very important part of protecting that art. So do we have an agreement with the art gallery? And I'd be happy to get an update later as to their responsibility to protect the art.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Is it okay to maybe get the beginnings of an answer to that? And if it gets more extensive, we can take that offline. Thank you, Director Brooks-Joyner.
It's Carrie Brooks-Joyner, Director of Strategic Initiatives, Healthy and Safe Communities. The partnership agreement discussions which have been referred to will address the portion of the collection that the city owns and the responsibilities that the gallery has to be the steward of that collection on behalf of the city. The scope of the partnership agreement will also include a new funding model and define the relationship between the gallery, which is a not-for-profit charity, and the city of Hamilton.
Thank you for that, Carrie, and thank you, Deputy Mayor. Some of the art that's in that collection is extremely expensive, and it's very important that it's be kept in a climate control. So it's important that we have that agreement in place. So thank you for that, Deputy Mayor, allowing me the latitude.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. With that, I think our speakers list is now exhausted. I'm not seeing any hands in the room. It's been moved, it's been seconded, and I think we can call for the vote. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, and that vote carries 15-0. Thank you to Councillor Tadison and Councillor Spatafora for moving and seconding item 10.11, the Advisory Committee for Persons with Disabilities, ACPD, Report 23011, November 14th, 2023. Is there any discussion on this item? Councillor Tadison?
Just wanted to bring 3 things to everyone's attention from the ACPD.
Advisory Committee for People with Disabilities is considering a name change that will provide some clarity to the fact that they are not really an advisory committee, and we would like to thank Councillor Kretsch for his initiation on this matter. There is an ask in this for $23,172 base budget submission to be approved and referred to the 2024 budget process. And thirdly, and I think most importantly, the ACPD has, with their lived experiences, some significant concerns regarding the cancellation of the temporary no-pay program without first addressing several insufficiencies with the current bus design. This motion that they were bringing forward was deferred until their next meeting later on this month. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tazin, for those updates. And then just, I'll say this as a question so I can have the clerk confirm it, but I think this is the case, that normally what happens is a standing committee or other committees will come to AFNA or another committee with their budgets. ACPD is a legislated committee under the Accessibility with Ontarians with Disabilities Act, and so therefore it reports to GIC. So just for folks who've been at standing committees and we've been approving budgets, this comes here. It's a little bit different than the other ones. And so Clerk McRae, there's a budgetary piece in this as well.
So through the Deputy Mayor, no, the only thing that the committee is approving today is the appointment of the chair and vice chair of ACPD for the remainder of the term.
Thank you. And then the budget ask will be part of the budget process?
The rest is information to be received within the report.
Perfect. Thank you. And so that would just indicate that there might be other steps that have to happen to get things to the right places. I think PSA has been had. If there's no other discussion on this report in front of us, which receiving the report is the approval of the chair and vice chair, thank you, clerk, for helping us get there, we can move to that vote. Oh, Councillor Pauls, can we get a thumb in either direction? We're good. We got it. And that carries 15-0. We have two discussion items left, 10.12 and 10.14, because we've already done 10.13. So 10.12 is the Family Shelter System HSC 23041B. May I please have a mover and a seconder to put item 10.12 on the floor? Well, thank you to Councillor Kassar and Councillor Kretsch for your eager volunteering. Is there any discussion on this item? Councillor Clark.
Thank you. Can I ask Deputy Mayor, it doesn't indicate any funding for the current year with regards to hotel space. So where are we with providing family shelter space in hotels in 2023?
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Looking to Director Baird.
Through the chair to the councillor. So the hotel space for 2023 was previously approved. It's approximately $6 million in hotel space in total, some of which is levy, some of which is through the Homelessness Prevention Program funding. That was approved by this council when we originally came back to talk about the pressures within the family system, and so that will continue into 2024.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Clark. Would anyone else like to get on the speakers list for this item? I'm not seeing anyone at this time, so it's been moved, it's been seconded, and we can call for a vote. And that vote's now up. Thank you. And that vote carries 14-0. Thank you, everyone. And speaking of 14, that's where we're going next. Item 10.14 is the 2024 Property and Liability Insurance Renewal, LS 23041 citywide. Councillor Danko, going to look to you to move this one, and seconded by Councillor Kretsch. And we have you first on the speakers list, Councillor Danko. Others are welcome to join as well.
Yeah, thank you. So just further to the discussion on the Art Gallery of Hamilton, one of the initiatives that we're looking at is ways that we can consolidate things that we are doing as a city and that the gallery is doing independently, and then, also paying for. And one of those things was bringing their insurance, property and liability insurance, into the greater city policy. So if this is approved today, is there any impact on those discussions which are still ongoing?
Thank you, Councillor Danko. I'm looking over to the bench, and sorry, would you be able to start with an introduction as well? Apologies.
Through the chair, I can do an introduction. It's Ron Sabot, Deputy City Solicitor. Just to clarify, did you want me to give an introduction to the report as a whole?
Sorry, apologies, City Solicitor. There are a lot of hand signals going on. I understand lots of communication goes on in a meeting. Solicitor Shields is trying to get me some attention. I just don't have a name. My apologies. If clerks could help with getting that mic on, I think we're good to go.
Through the chair, Dana McLean.
Thank you, Solicitor McLean. Would you be okay to answer that question?
Absolutely. With regards to the question posed by Councillor Danko, it is not going to have any effect on this insurance renewal. With the considerations with regards to the art gallery would have to be a separate issue and would be taken separately.
Okay. Thank you.
That's it for your questions. Thank you. I'm seeing Councillor Kretsch on the speakers list.
Thanks. And I will take up the majority of this offline simply because I already have, but I moved this motion last year. And in moving that motion last year, I asked the question about whether or not, I asked that very question that Councillor Danko just asked about our arm's length agencies, whether or not we can insure them. And I know that James Zagarek and some others got back to me. I thought it was a formal motion that I put forward, but no one ever replied to that. So I'm just wondering where we're at this point. I asked a year ago about it. I think I put it forward as a motion talking about the city reporting back about any of its arm's length entities and whether or not we could amalgamate the insurance issues. If not, let's just have the motion, finally. I think I was doing it in a friendly way, but just want to get information on that.
Thank you, Councillor Kretsch. You offered to take that offline. So if there's an initial response, and then if it needs to, you're okay there, so that we're all good on expectations. Solicitor Shields.
Through the chair, so my recollection, and correct me if I'm wrong, GM Zager, there was not a motion, it was just questions back and forth. So that was a broader question around ensuring, as you said, arm's length entities through the city's insurance program, which is a broader scope. But certainly a motion would be appropriate for us to do that because there are quite a number of entities that are would be included in that insurance program, and the impacts of that would have to be assessed.
Okay, I'll follow up before council. I've got the thread right here. I'll reply to you. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kretsch. I'm not seeing any other speakers on the list. It's been moved, it's been seconded, and we can call for the vote. And that vote's now up. Thank you, and that carries 15-0. As we leave our discussion items towards notices of motion and motion, I do just want to maybe prematurely celebrate. It doesn't look like we'll be here to 8 p.m. tonight. We might in fact finish early. So yeah, in the hands of committee, if that's what you'd like us to do. But I think we have some options here. So as we move on to, I don't think we have any motions on the agenda, so we'll go to notices of motion. Councillor Kassar, I understand you are wanting to waive the rules for your notice of motion as well.
Yes, moved by me, seconded by Councillor Tattison, that the rules of order be waived to introduce a motion respecting the stormwater funding review.
Thank you. So that motion's been put forward. I think we can call for the vote. Thank you. That's 15-0 to waive the rules of notice. Councillor Kassar, are you able to present your motion?
Thank you. Moved by me, seconded by Councillor Tattison. Whereas City Council at its meeting on June 28th, 23 approved the new stormwater rate structure, whereas City Council at its meeting on June 28th directed staff to develop and report back regarding the implementation of a stormwater incentives program, whereas City staff have undertaken consultations with the community regarding implementation of a stormwater incentives program, and whereas the rural community has expressed significant concern regarding the the application of the stormwater rate structure to agricultural properties. Therefore, be it resolved that staff, in the report back regarding the implementation of a stormwater incentives program, include specific recommendations regarding a stormwater rate structure and incentives program that recognizes rural agricultural properties as different from industrial, commercial, institutional, and multi-residential properties. And B, that staff clearly explain the financial impacts of the stormwater rate structure and incentives programs for rural agricultural properties, including alignment to the council-approved guiding principles, fair and equitable, climate resilient and environmentally sustainable, affordable and financially sustainable, justifiable, and simple.
Thank you, Councilor Cassar. Would you like to speak to your motion at all?
Yeah, briefly like to speak to it. First of all, I'll just reiterate what I've said in the past. I fully support the direction we're going with stormwater. I think it's very, very important here. And since June 28th, when council gave direction to staff, there's been lots of consultation and many conversations with several of, or all of the rural councilors really, on feedback from agricultural. And there's been presentations at Ag and Rural Affairs and some other separate presentations. And what's been presented is a reduction of 50%, max 50% from the calculation that would be used for industrial, commercial, and institutional, which could result in fees starting, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 for a farm, and then reduced in half to that amount, which has received great pushback. And the biggest concern has been that proposal isn't really grounded in any facts. It doesn't consider what rural is actually paying. There's a disconnect, as referenced in the motion, on what rural impacts there are. And in working with Director Winters, who has been very helpful with this motion, acknowledges that what's been presented to this point isn't fair and equitable for agricultural. I would say that absolutely there needs to be a contribution from the rural and agricultural community. However, not in the amounts that have been proposed, because really only one proposal has been put out there. And I think there's a much better way to do it in order for it to be understood and interpreted as fair by the agricultural and rural community.
Thank you, Councilor Cassar, for introducing your motion and for speaking to it. Our speakers list includes Councilor Danko and Councilor Clark at this moment.
Thank you, Acting Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I fully support the motion that's before us, and appreciate Councilor Tattison bringing some of these issues to my attention. I think the intention was never to treat rural and agricultural properties the same as industrial, commercial, institutional, multi-residential. So in my mind anyway, that was never the intention of the stormwater incentives program. I share Councilor Cassar's belief that I think it is critically important that all properties in the city of Hamilton do contribute to stormwater management in some way through their tax revenue, because all properties in the city benefit from stormwater management. However, seeing some of the rates that were being proposed, in my mind anyway, for a rural agricultural property really didn't make any sense, because they were in line of what we would be charging a large urban impervious parking lot or property, something like that. And obviously those properties are very, very different. So fully support the direction that's before us, and hopefully we can get to a final stormwater incentives program that is defendable, as was discussed, and makes sense for all areas of the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Danko. We'll go to Councillor Clark and Councillor McMeekin on the speakers list. And again, I think it's helpful as we're having this conversation. It sounds like this is not a conversation or a motion about the fee, but about the incentive program, if that just helps folks. There wasn't specific to anyone on the speakers list. Just wanted to get that out there. Councillor Clark and then Councillor McMeekin.
Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor, and I do want to thank Councillor Cassar and Councillor Tattison for bringing this motion forward. The original intention of many of the rural councillors was to have some type of consultation with the agricultural community prior to moving forward with a stormwater fee. Be that as it may, that's in the past. We are working to move forward with this process. And it's important that this city understand what the agricultural community is dealing with, and the challenges that they have, and how much work they do to maintain stormwater on their property, because it is a resource for them in the production of their crops. So it's really important that they capture that stormwater, and many of them do. I would suggest that one of the other things that we may need to look at later on, not now, Deputy Mayor, is the swales and the ditches that go along all of the rural roads. I'm not aware of a program where they're being cleaned out on a regular basis. We seem to be doing them more on a complaint-driven process. But if the agricultural community saw that money was going to assist in that regard, there might be less pushback on it. Just a comment in passing. Again, I want to thank the good councillors for bringing this motion forward. All of the rural councillors have received a feedback, a deputy mayor, shall I say, and I appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor McMeekin.
Well, I don't have much to add, Mr. Deputy Mayor, other than to join in the chorus of thanks to the two councillors who led the effort to pull the rural agricultural stakeholders together. It was a phenomenal response. I've never seen a response in the rural community with a couple of days' notice the way we saw the response at that meeting. And I was particularly pleased with Director Winter's engagement and his staff engagement, and his willingness to look at the consultant's report and to recognize that there were, some shortcomings, but good report, but some shortcomings. So it's important to our farmers. If this were to proceed in its proposed way, there would be several major farm operations that would cease to exist. Simple as that. They just couldn't afford to pay the kinds of fees that would theoretically be demanded. And we're a council and a horseshoe that's talked a lot about protecting lands, heritage lands, green space, prime agricultural lands. We've been very critical of senior levels of government that don't stand up and echo our concerns about that. Farmers feed cities, but they also need cities. We need to be working closely and in partnership with our agri-food sector, which, by the way, I don't know if people realize this or not, is the largest single contributor to Ontario's gross domestic product at $42 billion. And the single largest employer in Ontario, 814,000 full-time employees. So, we want to make sure that whatever we do doesn't jeopardize in incredibly difficult ways the agri-food sector. I thought the people that came out who were very cynical about the proposal, to their credit, listened, I thought, Nick, to what was going on, and were genuinely interested in contributing their fair share. And I found your input and the input of the staff, as well as the farm community, be very helpful, and I fully support the motion with thanks to the mover and seconder. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McMeekin. If I understand this right, if I wanted to speak, I'd throw it to Councillor Cassar, but he's the mover. So we're going to go back to a deputy mayor, which is Councillor Taddison. If you would be able to take the chair for just a moment, I just have one quick comment.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Really excited about this, and want to echo the comments of thanks to Councillors Cassar and Taddison for bringing this forward, as well as the broader consultation effort that's been going on. I do just want to make a quick comment about potentially the difference between an incentive program and outcome-based payments for whether it's impact we want, whether it's soaking in water, increasing biodiversity. We are seeing nature-based payments or outcome-based payments in nearby jurisdictions. In fact, there's a Deshkin ZB Conservation Impact Bond, which is a really exciting program in the Thames River Conservation Area, where Indigenous communities are partnering up with local conservation authorities, Carolinian Canada, and private sector finance to ensure that the municipality is paying for those outcomes that farmers and rural landowners are providing, and the upfront capital to initiate those projects is coming in through private investment. I think these are separate programs. What I mean to say this is the fact that when we're talking about incentives, we're talking about working with our farmers. There's so many different programs out there. Stormwater fees are an essential part of that mix, but also just I think it's worth noting that this doesn't have to be the only partnership we have with our agricultural community when it comes to managing stormwater. This motion seems to suggest to me, though, that the balance we've struck in our first proposal might not be quite right. And so while we can do more, we also might just have to make sure that this first proposal is a little bit close to the right balance. And so want to thank the mover for that. Really excited about this, but also excited about part 2, part 3, part 4, as we walk this journey of partnering with agricultural community members and getting those city priorities accomplished while also supporting our farmers. So thank you to the mover, thank you to the seconder, and that's it from me.
Back to you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else on the speakers list, so I think we can call for a vote on the motion. And that vote is in front of us. Thank you, everyone. And that vote carries 15-0. Thank you, everyone. Are there any other notices of motion from committee today? I'm not going to ask twice. I'm not seeing any. Okay, so we are now moving on to general information and other business. I don't believe we have any general information and other business. Okay, that's exciting. Next up is private and confidential. As we normally do, we can approve our minutes in open session. Would I be able to get a mover and a seconder to approve both 14.1 and 14.2, which are minutes from November 9th, special council, and November 15th and 21st, I believe, council meetings. I think Councillor Spatafora and a seconder in Councillor Kassar. Thank you. Those have been moved and seconded. And those pass 15-0. Thank you, everyone. Now that brings us to the last item on our agenda before adjournment, and we have a bit of a choice here. So this is the appointments to the Climate Change Advisory Committee for the 2022 to 2026 term. If we as a committee wish, we are able to go in to discuss those appointments in closed session. If we've reviewed that item, we don't have questions, we don't have a discussion, then I can go straight to Councillor Nan for her motion. So I'm just going to check in with committee if anyone would like to go to closed session. Not seeing it. Okay, Councillor Nan.
Sweet. Moved by myself, second by my vice chair, Councillor Huang, that the appointments to the Climate Change Advisory Committee for 2022 to 2023 council term be approved and released publicly following approval by council.
That's been moved. That's been seconded. We've decided we're not discussing it, so we can move to the vote. And again, I'm not going to accept any thanks until all the votes are in. Thank you. That's 14-0. And now I will look to Councillor Tattison, and I am assuming Councillor Spatafora? Or, okay, Councillor Tattison and Councillor Francis to move adjournment. Perfect. That's been moved. The vote's coming up. Perfect. Again, the meeting's not over till you actually vote.
Excellent job, Chair. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. We are not quite adjourned just yet.
I am.
There we go. And that has carried. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. 14-0.